I did something I regret. I thought it was the only way to save my mother's bakery. Now, every time I smell fresh bread, my heart aches. My name is Elena. I am 30 years old. I am a baker with long, dark hair and tired, hazel eyes. I try to be strong, but I carry a heavy secret. This is how I almost lost myself to pay the rent. Have you ever felt desperate? Type yes if you have ever worked a job you hated just for money. My bakery is my life. It is a small, warm place with yellow walls. I love the smell of cinnamon and sweet yeast. It makes me feel calm. This shop belonged to my mother. Before she passed away, she gave me her old recipe book. It has a brown leather cover. I touch it every morning for luck. But lately, I do not feel lucky. The bakery is too quiet. I stand behind the glass counter in my white apron. I look at my reflection. People say I am beautiful, like my mother. But when I look in the mirror, I only see shadows under my eyes. I feel exhausted. Everything is becoming difficult. The price of flour and sugar is rising every week. My old oven makes a loud, clicking noise. It is breaking, and I cannot fix it. Every evening, I open the cash register. It is silent. I count the coins slowly. I count them again, hoping the number changes. It never does. The flour on my apron feels heavy, like a weight I cannot carry. I sit on a wooden stool and stare at the empty street. I feel so small in this big city. I whisper to myself, how will I pay the bills? I stop answering my mail. I stop looking at the red numbers on the bank statements. Then, there is Mr. Sterling. He is a tall man with a cold face and expensive suits. He owns this building. He does not care about my mother's recipes. He wants to build a giant glass tower here. He wants my bakery to disappear. Every time he calls, my heart jumps. I am scared and lonely. I promised my mother I would keep this place, but I am drowning in debt. The rent is due, and I have nothing. One morning, the bell above the door rang. I hoped it was a customer, but it was Mr. Sterling. He wore a gray suit that looked very expensive. He did not say hello. He looked at my old wooden tables. He looked at the cracks in the walls with disgust. He placed a white envelope on the counter. You are 3 months late, Elena, he said. His voice was cold and firm. My hands started to shake. I hid them behind my apron. I am working hard, Mr. Sterling. Please, just give me a little more time. He did not smile. He looked at my mother's recipe book on the shelf. I don't care about your mother's history. I care about my building. You have 1 week. He turned and walked out. I felt small. I felt ashamed. I sat on the floor and put my head in my hands. I thought about my mother. I felt like I was failing her. But then, the phone rang. It was a woman from a large office nearby. We need 500 cupcakes for a grand opening tomorrow, she said. My heart jumped. I calculated the price in my head. It was enough. It was exactly the amount I needed for the rent. I felt a spark of hope. Maybe it will be okay, I whispered to myself. I worked all night long. I mixed the flour, the butter, and the sugar. The kitchen smelled like sweet vanilla. I was exhausted, but I was happy. I felt like a real baker again. By 5 a.m., the cupcakes were beautiful. The sun started to rise. I was ready, but then my phone buzzed. It was a message from the woman. I am sorry, Elena. The event is canceled. We do not need the cupcakes anymore. My legs felt weak. I dropped my phone. I looked at the hundreds of cupcakes. They were perfect, but now they were useless. I slid down to the floor. My chest felt tight. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. Suddenly, I heard the door open. Mr. Sterling was back early. He saw the cupcakes. He saw me on the floor. He walked inside without asking. He stood very close to me. I could smell his strong perfume. It made me feel trapped. I took a deep breath. I did not want him to see me cry. I stood up slowly. I walked to the sink and turned on the cold water. I washed the flour off my hands. The water was freezing, but it helped me stay calm. For a moment, the kitchen was completely silent. I stayed very still. I turned around. Mr. Sterling was watching my every move. He was not looking at the cupcakes. He was looking at my lips. "You cannot pay the rent, Elena," he said quietly. "I know," I whispered. I knew he was right. He stepped even closer. "There is another way to fix this. There is a way to keep your bakery. You do not need money." For a moment, I did not understand. "A private chef?" I asked. Sterling nodded. His eyes were dark and serious. "You will live at my estate for 30 days. You will cook only for me and my guests. In return, I will forget your debt. No more lawyers. No more worry." I knew what he really meant. He did not just want my recipes. He wanted to control my life. He wanted to own my time. I felt a cold shiver run down my spine. "And if I say no?" I asked. My voice was a whisper. Sterling looked at the door. "Then I will change the locks tomorrow morning. This bakery will be mine. Your mother's legacy will be gone forever." I felt sick. My hands began to shake violently. I looked at the leather recipe book on the shelf. It was the only thing I had left of my mother. I thought about the smell of her hair. I thought about the promises I made. My chest felt very tight. I took a deep, slow breath to stop the fear. I stayed silent for a long time. I just watched the dust dancing in the morning sunlight. I felt like the world was stopping. The silence in the kitchen was heavy and painful. I whispered to myself, "Is this the only way?" I looked at his expensive shoes, then back at my old, flour-covered floor. He stood there, waiting. He knew I was desperate. He knew I was alone. I had to make a choice. I had to choose between my dignity and my mother's bakery. It was the hardest decision of my life. I arrived at Sterling's mansion on a cold evening. The house was giant, but it was not a home. It smelled like expensive perfume and cold stone. It did not smell like my bakery. I felt out of place immediately. I thought I was there to work in the kitchen, but when I entered, I saw no flour. I saw no ovens. Sterling gave me a silk dress. He told me to stand by his side during a dinner party. There were many guests in expensive clothes. They looked at me, but they did not see me. They talked about money and power. I knew then that I was just a decoration. Sterling wanted to show everyone that he owned the beautiful baker. I whispered to myself, "This is wrong. This is not who I am." During dinner, Sterling laughed loudly. He put his hand on my shoulder. His grip was tight. "Elena is finally learning," he said to his friends. "She used to spend all day in a dusty, poor bakery." I told her to forget that place. It was a pile of old bricks. He looked at me and smirked. "Stay here, Elena. You are much better as my assistant than as a baker." The guests laughed. I felt a sharp pain in my heart. I thought about my mother's hands. I thought about the flour on my apron. Her bakery was my life. It was a place of dreams. It was not a pile of bricks. Suddenly, I felt a wave of courage. My heart beat fast, but my mind was clear. I reached for the small white apron I had to wear over my silk dress. I untied the ribbon slowly. I felt my hands stay perfectly still. I was not shaking anymore. I threw the apron onto the expensive rug. It fell like a white flag of war. I looked straight into Sterling's eyes. I did not look at the floor. You can buy a building, Mr. Sterling, I said. My voice was steady and strong, but you can never buy my soul. My bakery was small, but it was honest. You have everything, but you have nothing. Sterling's face turned red. He was shocked. I took a very deep breath. I felt my chest expand. I stood very tall. For the first time in a long time, I did not feel small. I felt like myself again. Sterling screamed. His face was red and ugly. I will destroy you, he yelled. I will make sure you never open a bakery in this city again. You will be a beggar on the street. I felt a cold shiver, but I did not shake. I stood very straight. I did not look at the floor. I looked directly into his angry eyes. You can take the building, Mr. Sterling, I said. My voice was calm and firm. You can take the walls and the oven, but you will never own my mother's recipes. You can never buy my heart. I turned and walked away. I did not look back at his expensive furniture or his angry face. I walked out of the mansion and into the night. It was raining hard. The cold water hit my face and soaked my silk dress. I felt like the rain was washing away his control. My chest felt light. I was alone in the dark, but I was not afraid. I whispered to myself, I am finally free. I walked back to my small bakery. The street was quiet and dark. I looked at the sign above the door. It was old and beautiful. I knew I had to leave tomorrow. I felt a heavy sadness in my heart, but I also felt a strange relief. I walked inside and took the leather recipe book from the shelf. I held it close to my chest. It smelled like cinnamon and my mother's perfume. It was the only thing I needed. I put it in my bag and locked the door for the last time. When I turned around, I saw Mr. Miller. He is my neighbor. He is a quiet man who also suffered because of Mr. Sterling last year. He looked at me for a long time. I thought he was going to say something mean. I saw you at his house, he whispered. I was worried about you. Then, he looked at my eyes. He saw that I was not broken. He saw that my head was high. He smiled. It was the first time I saw him smile. You won, Elena, he said. He has the keys to the door, but you have the keys to your life. I felt my eyes fill with tears. I took a deep sigh and looked at the moon. My bank account was empty. I had no home. But for the first time in years, I did not feel small. I felt proud of myself. I was ready to start again. Here is the final part of the transcript, covering the resolution, moral lesson, and practical application. 6 months passed. I am in a new city by the ocean now. I do not have a big bakery with yellow walls anymore. Instead, I have a small, bright blue food truck. Every morning, I wake up and I feel calm. I do not have debts. I do not have Mr. Sterling. I heard news about him last week. He is in big trouble. The police are investigating his business for cheating people. His glass towers are not being built. I felt a small, quiet smile on my face. Justice finally arrived. A little boy came to my window today. He took a bite of a warm cinnamon bun and his eyes went wide. This is the best bread in the world, he said. I laughed and felt a warm glow in my chest. I reached back and touched my mother's recipe book. I whispered to myself, We did it, Mom. The book used to smell like fear and old dust in that dark bakery. Now, it smells like the sea and fresh air. It smells like freedom. I realized that my mother did not give me a building. She gave me a gift that no one can steal. I stood tall and breathed in the salty wind. I am happy. I am finally home. This story teaches us a very important lesson. Never let your fear of being poor make you forget your value. A house is just walls and wood. It can be taken away, but your dignity is your soul. It stays with you forever. If you believe your pride is more important than money, please like this video. Subscribe to our channel for more stories about strength and courage. In our modern world, we often face very high pressure. Prices are rising, and bills are everywhere. This stress can make us accept toxic situations. You might stay in a dangerous job or a hurtful relationship because you are afraid of losing money. But please, remember Elena's journey. First, you must set clear boundaries. Do not let anyone cross the line of your self-respect. If a situation feels wrong in your heart, it is wrong. Second, remember that your greatest asset is not what you own. It is your skill and your character. Elena lost her shop, but she kept her talent. No one can take your ability to work, learn, and create. Third, understand that losing a physical thing is sometimes a blessing. It can be the start of a bigger, more beautiful life. When Elena lost her bakery, she found her true strength. Do not be afraid to start again from zero. Even if you start in a small truck, it is better because you are the driver. You are in control of your destiny. Protect your peace of mind. It is worth more than any bank account. Thank you for listening to Elena's story today. We want to hear from you. What would you choose? Your house or your pride? Comment 1 for house or 2 for pride. Like and subscribe for more. See you in the next story.